Breaking news right now. The U.S. Supreme Court has just refused to block the execution of sniper mastermind John Allen Muhammed.
Muhammad, of course, scheduled to die by lethal injection tomorrow night. 8 News reporter Nate Eaton spoke exclusively with his attorney today in Fairfax.
He spent over hundreds of hours with John Allen Muhammed, and today Muhammad's attorney spoke with me extensively about the case and what he expects to happen tomorrow.
We don't ask for sympathy, and we don't ask that people think of him as not responsible.
John Sheldon admits his client, John Allen Muhammed, is the mastermind behind the D.C. sniper killings, but argues that Muhammed is mentally ill and because of that should not be executed tomorrow.
Like people with mental retardation or like juveniles who have reduced judgment, reduced understanding, and reduced impulse control, isn't somebody with severe mental illness just like that? There's no intellectual difference.
Now, Muhammad's attorney also spoke with us about representing one of the most infamous killers of the past decade. Coming up on 8 News at 6 o'clock, hear what he had to say about that. Now, the man who helped solve the sniper case, Chief Moose, spoke with 8 News anchor Morgan Dean recently. Here's this exclusive report.
New information tonight. The U.S. Supreme Court has refused to block the execution of sniper mastermind John Allen Muhammed. Tonight, 8 News reporter Nate Eaton speaks exclusively with Muhammad's attorney in Fairfax.
We're not asking for sympathy.
John Sheldon has one last wish for his client, John Allen Muhammed, that Governor Tim Kaine will grant him clemency and spare his life.
It's extremely understandable that for many criminal defendants, especially John Muhammed, that folks are not sympathetic to the fact that he has severe mental illness.
Sheldon argues evidence of Muhammad's mental illness was never heard by a jury, and that means the difference between life and death.
If they heard the evidence of his severe mental illness, at least one juror would have stuck with life, and John Muhammed would have gotten life without parole.
Instead, Muhammed will die by lethal injection unless Kaine steps in. Sheldon hopes that happens, but knows many others don't.
No matter how severely mentally ill John Muhammed is, that means nothing to the victims in the case. It doesn't change anything to do with the fact that either they were severely injured or they lost their loved one. There is no comfort in that to them.
So is Muhammed doing anything special tomorrow? Has he requested a final meal? Tonight on 8 News at 11, his attorney answers those questions. Now with more on his exclusive interview with Chief Moose, here's 8 News anchor Morgan Dean.
The U.S. Supreme Court has refused to block the execution of sniper mastermind John Allen Muhammed. Muhammed is set to die by lethal injection tomorrow night. 8 News reporter Nate Eaton spoke exclusively with Muhammad's attorney today in Fairfax.
If everything goes as scheduled, then 24 hours from now, John Allen Muhammed will have been executed. But tonight, his attorney here in Fairfax is speaking about how his client will spend his last day.
Sitting in prison with nothing, waiting to be killed.
That's how John Sheldon says John Allen Muhammed will spend his time Tuesday.
Professing his innocence based on sort of his paranoid delusions.
Unless Governor Tim Kaine grants Muhammed clemency, he will be executed. And as for the few decisions Muhammed is allowed to make in his final hours, he's leaving those up to the legal system.
He has no interest in choosing lethal injection or electrocution, and he hasn't. He has no interest in choosing a last meal.
And you will want to stay tuned for our 8 News Extra with comprehensive coverage on the sniper. That begins in just a few minutes. Reporting tonight in Fairfax, Nate Eaton, 8 News.
The first sniper victim survived 5 bullets.
And he recently sat down for an exclusive interview with 8 News reporter Nate Eaton.
This was all bloody and glasses all over the place.
7 years later, Paul LaRufa still can't believe he was the first victim attacked by the D.C. snipers.
I was scared like everybody else was scared.
It was around 10 p.m. on September 5th, 2002. Paul left his pizzeria in Clinton, Maryland. He put his laptop and cash from the daily sales in the back seat of his car.
I opened this door, sat down. As soon as I shut it, I just looked. I didn't even look to my left. I just felt to my left, flash a light, and the window exploded.
There's been a shooting at Mark Twain restaurant.
2 men in the parking lot called 911.
I hope he's not dead. You gotta stay on the line.
As Paul clung to life.
A guy came out from behind the store and shot Paul LaRufa and
5 bullets pierced his body in his left arm, chest, stomach, diaphragm, and spinal cord.
I don't know if I could say I felt each one, but you know, I felt it happening.
Paramedics rushed him to the hospital with bullet fragments scattered throughout his body.
And they're just right next to my spinal cord, so I missed at least being paralyzed by a quarter of an inch.
Miraculously, Paul was out of the hospital within weeks. Meanwhile, John Allen Muhammed and Lee Malvo were using his money to fund their operation, but Paul had no idea they were the ones who had attacked him.
I was pumping my gas and looking around and ducking like everybody else.
It wasn't until a few weeks after Malvo and Muhammad were caught that Paul learned Malvo had indeed shot him.
It's still shocking then to find out, holy mackerel, that's the guy who shot me.
Paul was called to testify at both of the men's trials and was on the stand as Muhammad acted as his own attorney.
The guy who was responsible for trying to kill me got to ask me questions about, what happened. It was just emotional to see him there, right there.
Since that day, Paul has never seen Muhammad in person and is not attending his execution.
As far as I know, he's never expressed the least bit of remorse about anything. So I think he's just a psychopath.
While Paul has no desire to see Muhammad, he does hope to speak with Malvo one day.
I think it would be interesting to have a victim interview the person who tried to kill him.
Paul has physically recovered from his attack, and psychologically, life gets easier every day. He knows he's lucky to be alive, and his car is a daily reminder of that.
I survived in that car, so it's more of an attachment of a lucky car than an unlucky car.
In Hollywood, Maryland, Nate Eaton, 8 News.
8 News reporter Nate Eaton had a chance to sit down with John Allen Muhammed's ex-wife.
Here's what she told him about the execution.
I just never thought that John would do something like that.
Mildred Muhammad never imagined that her husband of 11 years would be responsible for killing 10 people, injuring 3, and terrorizing thousands of others living near Washington, D.C.
I never thought he would explode like this.
Mildred married John Allen Muhammed in 1988. For the most part, their relationship was normal, but John did have some issues.
I would purchase glasses. He would break all of them except for 2. I would purchase dishes. He would break all of them except for 2 dishes.
Despite this, Mildred says John was very outgoing and loved to be around people.
He was focused on what he wanted to do with his life and how he was going to go about doing it.
In 1990, the Muhammads had a baby boy. That same year, John was assigned to Saudi Arabia for military service. There, he became a skilled marksman. But when he returned home, he'd changed in a big way.
Well, he went from being happy to being depressed all the time. It was like his spirit had been broken and he was trying to find himself again.
John was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder but never received professional help. To complicate matters, the military brought forth major charges against him.
He had told a sergeant that angered him that he would kill him, his wife, and everybody down to his grandmother.
A jury found John innocent. Meanwhile, Mildred had given birth to 2 daughters, but the Muhammad's marriage was crumbling. Mildred asked for a divorce.
He wanted, to see the children every other weekend. That's what we worked out. And this particular weekend was my mother's birthday, and he didn't bring them back.
Instead, he took the kids to Antigua, where he kept them for 18 months. Mildred tried unsuccessfully to track them down as John would call and threaten her.
I was still looking at the rooftops. I was looking at every open window because I knew John was going to kill me, and I knew it was going to be a headshot.
Eventually, Mildred got her kids back and moved to Maryland in 2001. The next year, John and Lee Malvo left Washington State for the East Coast.
Do you think he left the West Coast to come out here to find you?
Yes.
That was his purpose?
That was his reason for coming here.
Mildred didn't know her ex-husband was in the area, and as people were being killed by a sniper, she had no idea John was a part of it.
I was looking for John, and I was looking for the 2 Caucasians in the white box truck. So I'm looking for 2 different people, because one of them, I'm thinking, is going to get me.
When John was finally caught, Mildred couldn't believe it as investigators told her the news.
I'm just thinking, oh my God, John?
Since John's trial, Mildred has started a nonprofit group to help domestic violence victims. She's written a book and says she's accepted the fact that tomorrow her ex-husband will die.
I don't need him to say I'm sorry. And if anybody is looking for him to be remorseful, it's not going to happen.
In Clinton, Maryland, Nate Eaton, 8 News.
And happening right now, sniper mastermind John Allen Muhammed will die in just a few hours by lethal injection. 8 News reporter Nate Eaton is live at the execution site in Jarrett. Nate, we want to ask you, the Supreme Court has refused an appeal. Governor Kaine has refused clemency in this case. Is there anything that can stop this?
Well, at this hour, Juan, no, there's really not. I spoke with Muhammad's attorney this afternoon, who told me that they decided not to go forward with any other option once the Supreme Court handed down their decision, and once Governor Kaine refused clemency, they decided to not oppose that and go forward. So here in about 4 hours, John Allen Muhammed will be put to death.
My son's father will be gone, and I'm going to have to be there for him. You know, I know there's going to be some change with him, and I have to be there for him.
Now, that was Muhammad's first wife. She was here this afternoon. She came to see Muhammad with her son. She had a son with John Allen Muhammed. He's now 27. They came to say goodbye to him. She was not allowed in. However, her son was. He went in and met with Muhammad for several hours. When he came out, he didn't want to talk with reporters. He didn't want to discuss the matter. They simply drove away. There were also at least one victim who came this morning to meet with Muhammad. She didn't want to talk with the media. We do know that there will be about 13 witnesses, at least 13 witnesses in there, 13 victims witnessing the execution of Muhammad. This is a very big story. Media here from all over the world, and we will continue to follow it and bring you updates throughout this newscast. For now, reporting live at the Greensville Correctional Center, I'm Nate Eaton for 8 News. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Nate. Governor Kaine's statement on Muhammad's clemency request reads in part, "I find no compelling reason to set aside the sentence that was recommended by the jury and then imposed and affirmed by the courts. Accordingly, I decline to intervene."
Well, in under 4 hours, John Allen Muhammed will be put to death here at the Greensville Correctional Center in Jarrett. A lot of media from around the world are here to cover the event, and some of the victims impacted by John Allen Muhammed will be here. We know at least 13 people will witness the execution. Coming up in just 15 minutes, hear from Muhammad's first wife. She was here this afternoon. She tried to go in and see him. Hear her thoughts on the execution. Reporting tonight at the Greensville Correctional Center, Nate Eaton, 8 News.
Thank you, John. Happening right now, sniper mastermind John Allen Muhammed is preparing to die in just a few hours by lethal injection. Our 8 News reporter Nate Eaton is live at the execution in Jarrett. So, Nate, I understand you spoke with his attorney today. What is his mood and what has he been doing today?
Well, Christina, his attorney said that he really is sitting in his jail preparing to die. We do know that earlier on he met with his son from his first marriage for at least a couple of hours, 2 or 3 different hours. The son went into the correctional center behind me, stayed there, and then immediately left, did not talk to any reporters. But Muhammad's first wife did. She said that she wanted to see him today, wanted to come and say goodbye. And the first question they planned to ask him was why? Why did you do this? What led you to do this? Unfortunately for her, she said she was never allowed the chance to go into the prison and ask him those questions. But we did speak with her about some of her thoughts and her son's thoughts. Here's some of what she had to say.
My son's father will be gone, and I'm going to have to be there for him. You know, I know there's going to be some change with him, and I have to be there for him.
And again, we do know that at least 13 victims will be inside to witness the execution. Very few representatives of the media will also see the execution. It is scheduled to go at 9 o'clock tonight. Yesterday, his attorney told us that he really wasn't going to choose a specific final meal. It was just going to be another day. Today, we're being told that he has chosen a meal, but he has asked that that not be not released to the public. The correctional center here is continuing to give us updates on this execution, and we will keep you updated through the remainder of this newscast. For now, reporting live at the Greensville Correctional Center, I'm Nate Eaton for 8 News. Carrie?
8 News at 6 starts now.
Thank you for being with us tonight. We are about 3 hours away from the scheduled execution of convicted sniper John Allen Muhammed.
Well, today Governor Kaine denied clemency for Muhammed, clearing the way for his execution.
I pledged when I ran for office that I would uphold the laws of Virginia, and the death penalty has been reserved for the most serious crimes by anyone's definition. this would fit into among the most serious crimes that have been committed in the Commonwealth in our history.
8 News reporter Nate Eaton is live at the Greensville Correctional Center in Jarrett tonight.
And that's where tonight's execution, of course, set to take place. So, Nate, what is the mood like there?
Well, Christina, it's relatively quiet. A lot of media here, but as far as protesters, anything like that, there has been none that we have seen. Now, earlier on, I did speak with Muhammad's attorney. I asked him what happened. What did Muhammad do when you told him that he was going to get executed, that Governor Kane did not grant that clemency and that the U.S. Supreme Court refused to change the decision? He said that Muhammad really didn't even flinch. He just kept doing what he was doing, which is always, from day one, he's always proclaimed his innocence. Now, today we spoke with Muhammad's first wife. She came here to say goodbye to him. She was not allowed in, but her son was, who happens to be Muhammad's son as well. She says that today is really a day kind of full of mixed emotions.
It was hurtful for me to see him walk in knowing he was going to see his dad for the last time, so it was very hard for me to see that.
And Carol Williams there says after Muhammad is executed tonight, they will take his body back to Louisiana, where they will hold a proper burial for him. Coming up tonight on 8 News at 11, we will have complete comprehensive coverage on the execution of John Allen Muhammed. For now, reporting live at the Greensville Correctional Center, I'm Nate Eaton, 8 News.
Thank you, Nate. Muhammad's attorney says Virginia is executing his client before his appeals were fully pursued, saying, quote, "The state of Virginia will execute a severely mentally ill man who also suffered from Gulf War syndrome the day before Veterans Day."
Thank you, John. Our top story tonight, just after 9 p.m., convicted sniper John Allen Muhammed was executed by lethal injection. Our 8 News reporter Nate Eaton is live at Greensville Correctional Center with the story. Nate?
Christina, John Allen Muhammed was pronounced dead at 9:11 p.m. That was 13 minutes after he entered the room containing the lethal injections, 2 of them, the IVs, that would kill him. Now, a couple of witnesses, a couple of victims and victims' families were inside of that room. They got to watch it. None of them spoke on camera to anybody this evening, but earlier today, one of them said that tonight, this execution brings to an end a nightmare that began 7 years ago.
I never heard him utter a word or say anything in particular.
A quiet ending to the life of John Allen Muhammed, executed by lethal injection and pronounced dead at 9:11 p.m.
He walked in, he staggered a little bit. It was very calm. There was no speaking.
Muhammed entered the room at 8:58 wearing a blue shirt, blue denim jeans, and flip-flops. Family members of victims watched through a mirrored glass door. They could see him, he couldn't see them. At 9 o'clock, medical workers strapped him down.
Once he was strapped down, he was watching and looking around a little bit.
Then a curtain was pulled as workers administered the IV.
After that was completed and the curtains were opened back up, he had his head tilted slightly to the right and his eyes were closed, and that's the way he remained.
Media witnesses say Muhammed was calm, showed no reaction during the entire ordeal, and when asked if he had any final words, said nothing. When it was all over, Muhammad's attorneys read a brief statement expressing sympathy for Muhammad's children and victims of his crimes.
To all those families and the countless citizens across the country who bore witness and continue to do so to those tragic events, we renew our condolences and we offer our prayers for a better future.
And authorities here at the Correctional Center say the reason that curtain was pulled is to protect the identity of the workers. Now, Muhammad's attorney tells us today that his last meal was chicken with red sauce. He didn't say what type of red sauce, but it was chicken with red sauce and strawberry cake. As for his body, his first wife was here today. She says they plan to take it back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where they will give Muhammad what she calls a proper burial. Reporting tonight in Jarrett at the Greensville Correctional Center, I'm Nate Eaton for 8 News. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Nate. If I could just ask you one quick question. You mentioned this is not, you there, Nate? Thank you. You mentioned this is not just a local story, of course, it's also a national story. Talk about the other members of the national media you see there.
A lot of members of the media here. I believe we counted 27 satellite trucks. Also international media. A group from France is here, from Germany, the BBC is here. This, of course, is a story when it happened that captured worldwide attention and is continuing to capture worldwide attention tonight. So it's been all over the cable news stations and a lot of local channels, too.
All right, thank you, Nate. We'll hear from you once again in a few moments. Thank you. Welcome back. Just 2 hours ago, convicted sniper John Allen Muhammed was put to death.
8 News reporter Nate Eaton's been live at the Greensville Correctional Center all day and joins us now again with the latest. Nate?
Yeah, John Allen Muhammed was pronounced dead at 9:11 p.m. tonight. That was about 13 minutes after he walked into the death chamber. A lot of victims affected by his sniper shootings were here to witness it. Also, earlier today, his first son came to speak with his father. He didn't talk with the media when he exited the correctional center, but he spoke with his dad. He was inside the correctional center for at least a couple of hours. His mother, however, spoke with us tonight, saying that it was going to be a tough day for her. Also, John Allen Muhammed's attorney spoke with us about how his children are doing. Here's some of that conversation.
Our sympathies also extend to the children of John Muhammed, who with humility and self-consciousness today lost a father and a member of their family.
And an emotional time for a lot of people affected by this case. Tonight, reporting in the Greensville Correctional Center, I'm Nate Eaton for 8 News. Back to you.